and gentlemen, before anything else, this is, as Rajiv said, the grand inaugural of the India Retail Forum 2015. And on behalf of the chairman, may we please say that we are privileged and very, very happy to have such an illustrious panel of retail alumni and retail faces amongst us.
Truly is, because this is now the time of great and rapid change in the world around us. From the way products are sourced, marketed, and to the manner in which the young today express desires, ambitions, and how they communicate. Some of us, I know, are being challenged by the sheer pace of technology, by the way things change almost dramatically. Like Mr. Iyer said, sometimes conventional wisdom isn't the best wisdom. Currently, I think it's not at all. And I think that's exactly where we are moving forward to, and maybe this is where we'll crack the code. This IRF and IOF, and maybe, as you're already predicting, Mr. Iyer, that next time it might only be an IOF model only. This time we may actually be able to crack that code, and I think it'll be a great start to all of that if we actually learn what we're doing, how people are shopping, from what they eat and how they buy that, what they wear and how they buy that, how we entertain ourselves and how we entertain other people. I think that's going to be the learning this time. I also believe most that these transformations are opportunities and are the time to explore smart, effective strategies to optimize emerging prospects of retailing in the digital age.
And we're going to kick it off with a power-packed panel. So let me introduce you to some of the faces and voices that you're going to hear now. Of course, Mr. Krish Iyer, who's chairman of IRF 15 and president and CEO of Walmart India. Rakesh Biani, joint MD Future Retail. Alok Goyal, MD Safe Partners. Vishal Mehta, founder and CEO of Infibeam.com. And Radhika Ghai Agarwal, who's co-founder of ShopFuse.com. So that's the list of faces coming up for you.
May I have the panel here, please? Welcome. Thank you, sir. Hi, how are you? Now this, of course, as you can see, is the inaugural session. Thus, of course, is all the power concentrated into one. A superstar panel needs a superstar to moderate and get it going. And of course, this powerful session will be moderated by B.S. Nagesh, founder, Train. Mr. Nagesh?
He's going to come in the same way as you.
Oh, okay. You're doing a Shah Rukh Khan moment too. Okay. Okay, everybody, he's waiting for the applause before he walks in. Come on, let's do that.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you very much.
Thank you. I have to say that, you know, if this panel, Nagesh, was a multi-starrer movie, I'd say Dil Dhadakne Do 2, right? And you would play Anil Kapoor because the main famous dialogue was 50-year-old with an 18-year-old body. So I think we'll start off by giving you that mantle. I'll play the voiceover of the dog, okay, and keep giving little bits of wisdom
because
also.
That's Amir Khan. That was nicely done, Rajiv.
So
that was very subtle.
Between the two of you, you had to establish the fact that I'm 50 plus. I'm Anil Kapoorish, okay, and I'm old.
Yeah, and all the other stuff also.
Now you'll feel comfortable.
We're going to leave it to you. The session is called Laying the Foundation for the Next Era of Retail and Embracing the True Retail Renaissance.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, when last 1 hour I was sitting in the audience, I realized that you've not been clapping very well. Not for them, but clapping for yourselves. So can we begin with that? Do it like this, not like this and this. Thank you very much. I'm really privileged to moderate a panel like this, which has the so-called old-time retailers. Raise your hands. Okay. We have the modern retailers, the online retailers. Raise your hand. And you have somebody who was on this side and has moved on the other side. So he has seen the green days, the blue days, and now he says you're seeing the dark days. Yeah? No. So we have a wonderful panel here. But before I start, I think it's important for us to know what is the audience like. So how many of you are actually retailers? How many of you are only online retailers? Just 6, 7 of them. Shit. How many of you are consultants here? Then what's this audience? How many of you are consumers? So at least we know that we have consumers here. One more question before we start. How many of you operate a laptop, a tablet, and a mobile, all three. How many of you operate only through a mobile device? No laptop? There's only one person in the audience who operates only through mobile device, so Mintras to watch. Anyhow, I think that's what the scenario looks like. So what I thought is, the best is to say that if you want to create a foundation for tomorrow, what should this foundation look like? Should this be that strong foundation which can last for hundreds of years and 20s of years? Or should this foundation be strong enough, but should be nimble enough to really take on building of levels and flows as we go on, year after year, because the changes are so fast. So let me start by asking first the lady on the panel, who has been in the business, ShopClues, for the last 5 years.
4 years, yes.
Sorry?
4 years.
4 years, sorry, yeah. That 1 year makes a lot of difference.
It
4
does,
years.
it makes a lot of difference these days.
So still very young. So Radhika, tell me, in the last 4 years, what changes have you seen in the marketplace, consumer, in your own company, and what are the changes that you never anticipated, but in hindsight now you say, shit, this happened, yeah, I should have thought about it?
So firstly, I have to say that I'm a little disappointed that there are not enough online retailers here. Obviously, we're not doing our job well, and we need to make sure that more and more people come online and sell. When we started in 2011, our whole thought process at that time was that online retail in any country pretty much resembles the offline retail in that particular country. In India, we had Infibeam, we had Flipkart. We're all doing an amazing job. But we wanted to get the mom-and-pop stores online, the small and medium businesses. That's the whole concept. That's the whole idea that we started with. And there was only one way of doing business around that, and that was of building a marketplace. That was the idea we started with. Today, 3.5 years into real business, and we have 215,000 merchants on the platform. So 215,000 merchants on the platform, about 20 million products that are listed, 20 million unique SKUs that are listed, about 15 million customers have transacted on the platform. So the growth has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the changes that we've seen over the past 4 years have been in the channel of consumption. Now, again, I'm sitting in front of a different audience, so channel, the word per se, has different connotations, but mobility has changed things for us very, very significantly. In April 2014, about 2% of our traffic was coming from a mobile channel source. And now it's about 70%. Very significant change. And that's the same for the number of orders as well. Sanjeev talked about how online business is done. There are day parts. What are the days it's doing well? When we started, we would see no traffic over the weekends because most of the people were accessing the site through the office computer. Now weekends, commute hours have taken a life of their own. Completely different commerce, right? Commute commerce has become a huge, our last ad, I don't know if how many of you caught it, it was called a Ghar Wapsi ad. But basically it was commute commerce. It's taken on a complete life of its own. More and more people are shopping between 6 to 12. And all of this is with the advent of having, and I've actually left my mobile phone in my bag, but the mobile phone, it's a personal device. It's a personal device that lets you partake in the retail revolution at your own pace. And that's really been one of the most amazing changes that we've seen in the last 4 years.
Rakesh, let's talk of the last 5 years. I know you have been in retail business for 20 years plus, or maybe more than that. But let's last 5 years. What are the changes you have seen?
I think in the last 5 years, business has doubled. Reach has, I think, almost tripled. Today we are in close to 180 plus cities across the country, and looking at expanding in more and more places. And every time we'll end up going into the smaller town, and it's a new India that we're trying to see. Something that we never imagined that actually existed. But when you have a store in Devgarh or you have a store in Jorhat, and the kind of demand for clothing that exists out there, or kind of demand for home that exists there, and that's been something which has been fantastic. Now, also what has changed is the fact that, we have kind of geared up ourselves to cater to such kind of demands. Investment in supply chain, etc. So the real focus that has happened for us is re-evolving the business in line with where the consumer is going. The consumer is becoming more aspirational. He's demanding more new things. And I think continues to be a case, say, the fact that the touch and feel is extremely important for that consumer. He really wants to touch and feel the product and wants to have the confidence that he's investing in the right product. More and more needs are there. I think specializing into categories is becoming even more important now than what it was there. When we started out the business, we were kind of present across all the categories, but never really went into the depth of it. But the consumer really wants the depth of the category today because the needs have arisen.
So if I ask you a question, what is your GMV equivalent of sales and revenue?
I really don't know what is GMV.
I was hoping that Radhika, you'll also talk about the GMV part of it. You missed that. You only talked about so many
I'm not falling
millions.
into that trap.
Okay, Achha,
That's not happening.
Okay, you're
I'll
not.
wait for Vishal to comment on that.
No, because I am very upset with the organizers and the creative people. People who make money have been put into the red zone, and people who are not making money have been put into the blue zone. I think give us some more time. Give the retailers some more time. Yeah,
By the way, that's a myth too.
Yeah.
Online businesses are on the verge of making money as well.
So, Krish, you've also seen this market from both the sides. Within the country, with your headquarters sitting in US. US with so much of technology, so much of modern customers, I don't think the so-called online or the omni-channel market is still 15 or 18% of the market. It's stuck around 15 to 20% of the market. When you hear this kind of changes happening in the market, consumer changes, a billion mobile phone, 4G coming in, can you relate something that has happened in your parent company over the last few years? Amazon versus Walmart, how they have looked at it, and then say that what's happening in India is almost a true replica, or will India move faster than what has happened around the world?
So I'll try to blend in a little bit of personal experience, which is not necessarily only with Walmart outside India, which is also in the Southeast Asian markets. For a period of about 8 to 10 years, I've been away from the country. So one thing which clearly hit me in the last year and a half, Nagesh, is this whole craze about making those choices for valuation and not really looking at the bottom line at all. I haven't seen this kind of thing in the Southeast Asian markets where people are adopting in countries like Taiwan or Thailand or Philippines. People are adopting e-commerce in a big way with a lot of adoption of technology, but with clear focus on the bottom line and on every transaction making money. Certainly gross margin positive, for sure. So that's one difference between Southeast Asia and here. The second point is about Walmart US and the omni-channel play. So we truly believe that the omni-channel experience is the only way to go. So competing with pure play on their terms, or for that matter, for any company or any retailer to adopt somebody else's strategy and start playing, it never works. So the strategy is very clear: provide the omni-channel experience. E-commerce is here to stay. I would say that without putting a number or percentage to it for the fear of being quoted in the press, I would put it this way, that majority of sales in bricks and mortar is digitally influenced. Therefore, understanding that space of e-commerce and the consumer behavior, and therefore the social media, the aspects of marketing, complaints management, that is really, really critical. And that's what we do here as well as in any other country where we operate.
So the key difference is the valuation part of it. Let me come to Alok. You have been on that side, you have created valuation. You are one of the few guys who have really created valuation because you sold something, you're part of Recharge, and you actually got money?
We did.
He got money. So it is real money transfer that's happened. So guys, we need to clap. One of the big transactions in the country. Yeah, come on. At least people who are sitting here to create valuation have hopes. Not small amount, 200 crores, yeah, 2,000, 3,000 crores, yeah. So what do you think? Is the valuation being driven by VCs? Is the valuation being driven by greed? Or you think that such real value can be created? And which I think is very, very important. One question. I also want to address, because I know the Bansals have been talking about that India is going to cross the organized retail cycle. So like the pagers went away and directly we came to a mobile business, organized retail will be crossed in India and directly it will be from unorganized trade to mobile trade or online or whatever. So can I have your opinion from both the sides? What do you think about it?
So from the valuation viewpoint, look, if you look at India and see the overall global scheme of things, you look at the US market, which is probably the most evolved market. But at this point of time, creating new opportunities there is also extremely difficult. The juice has been completely extracted out of the fruit, and finding the next drop of juice from the fruit is incredibly harder than finding the previous drop of the juice out of the fruit. The next big market, you look at the China market, the game has largely been played out in the China market. There are already big giants, hundreds of $1 billion worth of giants which have been created there. They are having gigantic usage, hundreds of millions of users, billions of dollars of revenues, true bottom line coming out. And that market was actually not perceived like a major market till like 15 years ago. But in 10, 15 years, China has dramatically changed from being an India-like market to being one of the most evolved market from the online commerce viewpoint. If you look at the global money, where is the next opportunity left for that money to incrementally grow, or in terms of getting the ROI on top of that money? It is pretty much India. Europe is not going to grow because whole of Europe is roughly equal to the size of US, and it's quite fragmented. So the only opportunity in the global scheme of things that is left is in the Indian market. You couple that on top of few other phenomena which are happening. There is a lot of uncertainty going on in Russia. A lot of Russian money is flowing out. Brazil is sort of not doing as well as it was supposed to do. And even in the BRICS economies, you pretty much find that India is actually very well suited with its billion user plus population, huge amount of internal consumption happening, very good sort of sound democracy, rule of law, etc. prevailing. So a lot of money suddenly starts flowing into India, looking for opportunities, looking for ROI. And what happens when a lot of money starts chasing fewer products out there, the prices of that product go up. Imagine summer season when mangoes are not produced well, and a lot of people want to eat those mangoes, the price of mango goes up. Pretty much treated like the mango situation in India at this point of time. There are very few good companies out there, but there is a lot of money which is actually chasing that opportunity, and hence the prices are going up, which is roughly indicating the price valuation bump, the rapid price valuation bump, which is sort of coming up. But at the same time, it's inappropriate to look at the businesses in terms of the valuation from what they are today. It is more appropriate to look at the businesses what they will be in like 5 to 10 year time frame. Businesses are not made in a year. Any entrepreneur who gets into the game to make a business in a year is sort of on a flawed approach. Businesses are built in like a decade. And in a decade from now, world is going to look completely different in India than what it is looking right now. So there is a real intrinsic value actually getting created among these businesses. And earlier in the discussion, we were talking about Ola and Uber phenomena. Till a year back, I was not taking any of the Ola and Uber. But in last 1 year, I've taken about 200 Ubers. And even if Uber price goes double, I'll not take 200 Ubers, but I'll still take 50, 60 Ubers. So the market is still there. Maybe it'll shrink a little bit after this discounting, etc. goes away. But there is a genuine intrinsic value actually getting created among the businesses. So the valuation is actually true. There will be a lot of casualties which will go up, which will sort of come across as we go along. But a lot of money chasing into the country and a lot of opportunity out there is actually rather a real phenomenon.
So there is consumer, there is consumption. Okay, new methods have got evolved, and probably this is one of the most talked about methods of doing business. Yeah, Vishal, you have been a pioneer, and you are one of those who had the Amazon gene in you when you actually came to India, 8 years, 9 years. Do you agree with what's happening? And do you agree with the real world business versus the virtual world business? Look at valuations. I think you are one of the right guys to talk about saying, how was the last years? Could you have done something very different in the last 8 years' time? And if you have to advise them as to how they should look at the current, we'll come to the future later on. Okay, how would you describe the scenario?
Sure. So I'm going to try to maybe narrate the kind of business models that have emerged in the last 1 or 2 years. Because I think we covered consumption has moved online, discovery has moved online, consumers are shopping online. So I think if you actually just remove all technology aside and say that what is the actual asset that you're catering to, then it's actually either a consumer or a merchant. So in other words, everything aside, everything dies down, and at the end you have either a consumer or a merchant for a business like ours. Now within that, the question is that business models will start competing. So are you able to build out a business model that is enabled by the technology DNA, that allows you to keep on scaling across. So what we have seen in talking about valuation and then value creation, for transacting business models, there are three in my mind that have emerged. One is the retail model, where a retailer will go and place products online and sell to consumers. The second one being a marketplace, where there is a platform provider and the buyer gets the material from the seller. The likes of maybe what eBay does in the US would classify as a marketplace. And then the third one, which is actually very prevalent in India, which is the managed marketplace. A managed marketplace whereby, yes, the buyer is buying from the seller, but the company is actually not only just providing a platform, but also the fulfillment, logistics, customer service, and the likes of it. So these are the three models that have actually evolved. And in my opinion, what has ended up happening is that there are merits and demerits to all these models. But if you look at all the companies, including ShopClues and many others, we've all adapted to one or some derivative of an existing model out there. And then over a period of time, I suspect that what will end up happening is that are you able to add enough consumers and enough merchants? Because unlike just a retailer, there are also merchants in the online world who are also able to sell products to consumers. And I think that over a period of time, what has ended up happening is that retailers will come online. They have started building their own presence. Consumers and merchants can be added at a pace which is much faster than what you could do perhaps in a physical world. And a combination thereof may translate into some amount of value creation or valuation that we talk about. But I want to get to that point that it is actually nothing else but the net revenue that matters. So in other words, are you able to generate positive net revenue from your customer, and are you able to generate positive net revenue from your merchants? That is what matters at the end. So I think there is some amount of forward investing. I think because of the pace at which you would want to evolve, there is going to be some amount of forward investing. But I think at the end, what will end up, being very important is that are you able to generate positive net revenue from either your customer or your merchant, which will make the difference.
Vishal, very, very interesting how the world has changed, not only in the channels, but also how new definitions of businesses have emerged. For example, what the modern day world calls as managed marketplace, okay, retailers call it as retail. Okay, there's no difference between these two. Revenue was always given. You are in business to get revenue. Where's the question of not having revenue? You always talked of gross margin, gross profit, EBITDA, PBT, and PAT. Okay, now we are saying we should have positive net revenue. This is real change. What is driving it, we really don't know. But tell me, in the last 5 years, the fact that now we're moving into looking at saying if online and offline remain, they're moving into omni-channel. Krish said that omni-channel is the way forward. And we know that Macy's, Nordstrom, John Lewis are highly profitable company. John Lewis reported a 37% contribution from their online business, which is fantastic, and £2 billion pounds. They're making money. So do you see a situation where online retailers will start opening up offline or dark stores because that's the only way to do, or they will collaborate with the offline retailers and that will be again an omni-channel play, but driven by the online players?
So I'll tell you my version. I think that if you look at an online retailer, pure play online retailer, you would imagine that the warehouse is a store because that is where the demand is being fulfilled. And so in a physical world, whatever is considered a warehouse is actually a storefront because that is where an online retailer is fulfilling the demand. And the physical storefront of an offline retailer is somewhat similar to a logistics facility which is close to a customer. So in other words, you would still need to ship the product from a physical warehouse to a logistics center, so that B2B part, before you can give the product to the consumer. So I think the models that have emerged, which are somewhat supply chain centric but hybrid also, is that are you able to think of a physical warehouse like a storefront, which is actually built for throughput more than storage? Now I know that it's one more a leap, but I think it's an important distinction to make, because the way you would actually want to run that setup is slightly different than what you would do
Yeah, but you know
traditionally.
what, Rakesh, I mean, I'm imagining a world where we will, as retailers or marketplace or managed marketplace, stop even meeting our customers face to face at all. Not even looking at them, not even feeling, they're saying, oh, you look nice, you look good, the appreciation, the whole society getting together. I know Kishore many a times back said the modern mall is like the temple, where the community meets. If the future malls are going to be the dark places, which is the distribution, logistics, hubs, two questions. With all brick and mortar going off to online also to become omni-channel, and omni-channel coming back into brick and mortar like dark horses. One is, how do you see the business going forward, and what kind of an organizations you need to create? I'll come back to them saying what kind of organization they need to create. But what happens to the human interaction, and what will be the kind of society we'll see, let's say 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line?
I think if you really look at anywhere else in the world, or in that matter even in India, despite of whatever we hear about what's happening in the last 2 years, 2.5 years in the so-called online world, and it seems the fact that online world seems to be taking away. But if you look at even in the last couple of months in terms of what's been happening in the offline stores, and I can specifically talk about our stores, we still landing up having queues when we offer our cheapest day. And when you come into our Wednesday Bazaar, which is every week, still there are hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands of them who walk in. I think close to about 4.5 million people come every Wednesday to shop at our stores. So I find the fact that, the physical world is here to stay. I can't find myself seeing the fact that digitally everything will be sold. It's not happening. But what the digital technology is doing for us, is that when we really look at it, and we look at the aspiration of the consumers, and look at the kind of space limitations that you have to carry an assortment at our stores, well, there is a concept of the endless aisles which has to emerge. It's about fulfilling the endless aspirations of the Indian consumers. And that's the real role that we want to do. And I find the fact that, when it comes to the smaller towns specifically, it is becoming so important to carry a very, very large assortment. Physically, it's practically impossible to carry that. It's not possible to forecast what's going to be the demand in every place. And that's what people like John Lewis are doing today extremely well. And if you look at John Lewis's data, and John Lewis will say the fact that maximum amount of customers really are coming back to the store to collect the order which was done online. Yeah. Right? So even a customer who is ordering online, his first preference in an evolved market is to walk into a store. 60%
plus online of John Lewis in click and collect.
Yeah.
So they're coming back to physical stores actually to pick up the stocks.
I think it's clearly that there is there was this art of visual merchandising. It had some meaning to it. It influences consumers all over the world, including India. When you talk about a fashion to buy, right? You see one garment at a time, or you see a collection together. The impact of the collection at a physical store is what induces the impulse to buy. And that's not happening. Irrespective of the speed at which Apple comes up with technology. In fact, I looked at what happened last week in terms of the 6S, and it's all about 3D feeling. You'll get a touch and feel factor coming through. But that's not going to happen. When you really look at the kind of stuff that you do at the store. While Kishore says it's a temple, really, frankly, it's a theater that you're creating. It's a complete theater. That is what a retail store is. Yeah. And that theater is what was there in the bazaars all over the world once upon a time. Now, in the rest of the world, the cost has become so high for running people. So you have got self-service kind of models which are running and less people to interact. But when you look at really, when you talk about shopping, even in the most indulging shopping, without that interaction, nothing gets sold.
So I just want to take that one statement from you, brick and mortar is here to stay. Alok, would you actually, if there was a great brick and mortar store and comes out with a fantastic omni-channel strategy, okay, would you look at that for investment?
Definitely yes, because I personally don't think the way brick and mortar stores are designed right now and the way e-commerce is designed right now are actually going to sustain in next 5 or 10 years from now. And like he's talking about, if you look at the shopping behavior for ourselves also, when I was a kid, pretty much only time when I'll buy a shirt will be when it's almost like a torn out shirt. So you'll go to a shop actually when you need a shirt, when you really need a shirt, and then you'll go to that guy, look at the collection and pick the best shirt out there that you like. But today the shopping has become much more of a social behavior. It has become much more of an impulse behavior. You like something, if your friend is wearing something, you go and something is in the fad right now, you just go and discover it, and that's when you buy product. You don't buy product, you need it, you buy product because you want it. And that change in offline shopping behavior from want to need to want has been a dramatic change in the last 10 or 15 years. And if you look at the e-commerce in its current form is still at the point of need. You need a shirt, so you go to a e-commerce portal, you go to the menu flow, and then you discover that product, and then you buy it. I think that e-commerce has to evolve more towards this way of doing the shopping. But on that point, I don't agree that the social shopping behavior, etc., cannot be replicated online. There are enough models which will come out in future. We are grossly underestimating the thinking capacity of entrepreneurs of the future. I think a lot of new models which will come out which will enable this social discovery, product discovery, etc. in a much more interactive manner. And I think there will be some merging which will happen between the online world and the offline world. And to a large extent, it is already happening. I discover a book in the offline world. I definitely find out the price on Flipkart and then decide where to buy it from. I want to buy a new TV. I go and look at the offline shops and see how the TV is in look and feel, and then I end up buying at one of the other channels. So there's already this consumer behavior merging that is happening, and I think e-commerce, once it evolves to this social behavior which is not yet conceived, let me be honest, is going to be a very interesting time, and that is up for grab. An offline merchant can go and grab that opportunity, an online merchant can go and grab that opportunity. And if anybody is going to grab that opportunity, I'm very much willing to invest in that venture.
Wonderful. So the two facts we've established. One is brick and mortar is going to stay. Second is brick and mortars, stores or businesses which can actually see us grabbing the opportunity of social behavior and then capitalizing on them are going to stay. So there, dear friends, catch on and grab it. Before I go back to the panel, a quick question. How many of you shop only online? There are outliers here. One guy who's only mobile, one person who shops only online. How many of you have never shopped online? You have that one person, Amitabh, Rajiv, we need to be giving some trophies to these gentlemen. Huh? 1 out of 1,000 shops only online, 1,000 shops only offline. How many of you shop every day, online or offline? Once a week, there's one lady, sorry, once a week, once a month. So
the other fact that got proven was that people are doing both online and offline shopping.
Both online and offline.
Because there was only one hand for only online shopping and one hand for only offline
you
shopping.
You caught my trick. Okay, anyhow. How many of you shop both online and offline? Yeah, I think there are lots and lots of them. There are lots and lots of them. Krish, let's go back to looking at the organizations that we have created in the brick and mortar world. Okay, and look at the nimbleness of that organization or the steadfastness of this organization to take on what's the new challenge coming up. And what kind of changes are you seeing there? What is the transition happening? Because I know a lot of us sitting here are into brick and mortar business, one way or the other. But the question is it just going online, is just getting a tech partner, or is also making some changes within the way we operate? When I was having tea with Alok and we are talking, he says the same set of people cannot operate the business. You require a totally new set of people. And actually true. In one of the organizations, the current set of people are 45 to 55, or 40, around 40, and the new set of organization is the 24s. And they have been put into two different offices, but the same organization. So what kind of changes are you seeing, anticipating, and I'm sure you must be involved in some changes, driving some changes?
So I must confess, there are some changes which we need to make ourselves. So just to give the perspective, we don't operate any retail stores, as all of you are aware. We have 21 cash and carry stores in the country. So now looking at the numbers differently in terms of how much is the non-store retail or non-store sales that is happening and what is the in-store sales happening. And therefore now thinking about the ratios that we traditionally used to think about as to what should be the staff cost ratio, what should be the utilities ratio. That's the step we need to take. We haven't taken. And I believe that we have an opportunity there as a bricks and mortar cash and carry operator to become sharper in terms of looking at how we should operate those stores, because a large part of the sales is becoming non-store retail or non-store sales. That's one part. That's the future change that needs to come in, that thinking needs to come in. The second important part is that, and I must also say, second point I must make here is that what is relevant for other countries is sometimes not relevant for India. So when you, for instance, we were discussing about John Lewis as an example, I think in that country to get into a car, go to the store and buy something, then come back home or eat outside, the entire experience is very pleasant. But if here if you see in metro cities, I think stepping into the car and then taking a couple of hours to reach the store, that is not a pleasant experience. To that extent, whether online will have a greater share or whether bricks and mortar will have a greater share is anybody's guess. I believe that online will definitely catch on. Although physical will not get eliminated, but online will catch on. And the people here are not representative of India. The young India, which is shopping only online, that number is also quite large. So when you do actual survey, so one of the things I looked at was a report, I don't remember exactly whether it was Deloitte report or some other report, and I looked at the top 7 cities in India and the share of the top 24 modern retailers. Actually, their share in the tier 2, tier 3 town, the growth is coming from the tier 2 and tier 3 towns. It's not coming from tier 1 for the bricks and mortar retailers, based on the report that was there. And although the modern retail growth is double digit or high double digit, but most of it is coming from tier 2, tier 3. So it's a point to note that the penetration of internet in metro cities is happening much faster at this point in time. But the same trend will catch on in the next 5 to 10 years in the tier 2, tier 3 towns as well. And that's the trend we need to foresee and therefore build our organization.
Rakesh, I want you to, Rakesh, 1 minute. I want you to address this whole mindset change required. Because how many of you are here below 25 years? So you're right. There are about 5 or 6 or 7 of them. So this is all the old age. You know what? Kunal of Freecharge was doing a presentation and an audience like this, and I said, how many of you operate mobile with one finger or one hand? Okay. So he called them uncles and aunties. How many people operate with both the hands and 2 fingers? He called them the young generation. So anyhow, Rakesh, I want you to address the mindset of the current organizations moving towards this new, because a lot of people are sitting with the traditional organizations.
You know, I just get confused when I hear the fact that, you know, that it's a young people shopping online and, you know, some old people are coming and shopping offline. The only people that we are trying to cater to are the young Indians, yeah. You know, they are the ones who are really aspirational, you know. Only if my dad was as aspirational as what I am and, you know, and I was as aspirational as my kids were, you know, we would have had a very different retail landscape by now in this country. It's just the fact that the income levels have gone up and the aspiration levels keep going up. And when you really look at who am I catering to, you know, my only focus is to cater to the young Indians. You know, be it in an offline environment or be it in an online environment. And when you look at, you know, the kind of organization that you want, I believe the fact that if you're going to create a pure online play business, yeah, and it's worthwhile to have a different organization structure. It requires different kind of thought processes. But if you're really serious about looking at the footfalls that are coming into your store or across your country, and if it's about catering to that customer, then it's about getting your existing organization to start thinking about catering to the maximum needs of these consumers. And it's about just ensuring the fact that you actually have one organization which is thinking through a digital world as well as an offline world, but combining them together and taking out the best value out of it. In the past, every time I have seen the fact that, you know, pure omni play done on an independent basis doesn't work. You know, it requires full-fledged integration of your retail stores. That's the touch point. That's the benefit that you provide to that consumer, saying, come to this store, and it has to be one organization catering to the same customer.
Radhika, I saw you wanted to butt in between.
Yeah.
So I think butt in from the past discussion.
Actually, completely agree with that. And in my previous life, before online retail, I spent many years with Nordstrom, leading their catalog business and the transition of catalog into the online world. So when they moved from, the catalog used to be a huge portion of their business, and it moved to Nordstrom.com at that point. And Rakesh is absolutely right. I disagree with Alok over here. You cannot have an independent organization trying to build a different aspect of the business. And we are seeing that transition in the online space again. I keep going back to mobility because it's such a huge changing factor. I cannot have a separate team looking at mobility as a channel. It's a mindset change that has to happen throughout the organization. Similarly, for any organization that's even in the offline space, if you're going to start your online venture, there has to be a complete change in all the processes. Whether you're talking about cataloging, whether you're talking about merchandising, whether you're talking about fulfillment, and that change has to come from the top, but it has to go grassroots into the whole organization. You cannot have two groups trying to parallelly run businesses. No idea how that would work.
Vishal, if you can just address what she's talking about in terms of mindset changes that has happened. I also want you to share, if possible, and if all of you can share. I know in the brick and mortar over the last few years, 65%, 55 to 65% business is happening what we call as full price sale. And now between 35 to 45% business is happening which is non-full price, which means end of season sale, discount. So discount is playing a very large impact in the way the brick and mortar businesses are doing. I don't know whether there's any industry information, Alok, between you, Vishal, Radhika, to say how much is the full price, which means without discount business happening in the online space. Okay, so I want you to first address the whole mindset shift because your organization has gone through its own changes due to impact on the brick and mortar as well as from the online players who have emerged later than you.
Sure. So in my opinion, any change is not sudden. It is an evolution. So for any brick and mortar store, in order to adapt digital, what Radhika said is right. You have to have that digital DNA, which we call, you have to be hands-on on digital. I mean, that's the only thing I can describe as far as the digital DNA is concerned. So the person who is actually running the show has to be hands-on in the digital world, not in the physical format. The second thing that I've noticed is that the transitions happen much easier if it becomes using digital as a means to solve a problem. And I'll give you an example. Supposing if there is a conversation where institutional sales is very important to a physical retailer, can they use digital as a medium to reach institutions and allow institutional sale to move on to digital compared to the physical brick and mortar? And that creates that ability to be able to start transformation. So if you actually break that problem down and say, can I move one of my existing channel to a digital channel? And can I expand on that? So in other words, today if I'm reaching 10 institutions, tomorrow can I reach 100 using digital? Because that's the scale that it provides. And can I use that? Those models and those companies I've noticed have a much better, greater chance of actually adapting digital because then it becomes a viable business. It is just one channel, but an important one nonetheless. We provide infrastructure. We've given it to many of these companies, and what we notice is that those activities, whether it is a large organization who wants to move their procurement, just their internal procurement online, because marketplace offers a great opportunity to be able to move procurement to those things. So I think from that perspective, I think it's right. I think it's very hard to move the entire organization to start thinking digital, but if you break that problem into multiple segments, I think it gets slightly easier. So that's one as far as organizational structure is concerned. The second part is that, as far as full price versus discount, I think a lot of online is discount today. So I think that, but there are smarter ways to give discounts. So in other words, even in the offline world, you will see something which is a loss leader and something that goes at a full price perhaps. But in the online world, there are ways where you would just discount the product as a loss leader, other ways where you would offer something which is more like an affiliate commission to somebody who sends you traffic. The third mechanism where you would give a discount voucher code and give them money in the wallet to again start transacting with you. And in each of them, for specific product categories, will have different economics. And the moment you start looking at per unit economics and start running your business in that format, then it starts getting more intuitive and you will start getting more understanding of it, in my opinion.
Look, we believe that discount is playing a very important role in the life of an Indian consumer, but in the online, looks like almost 90% is having this going through discount sales. I mean, would you agree, disagree? You have some figures to share?
I actually agree. Discounting is right now one of the integral part of the way online commerce is being built. It is good, it is bad. It is bad in the sense that the business fundamentals are not being respected, and at the end of the day, at some point of time, you have to have these business fundamentals which are actually respected. But it is good for the following reason. It is basically encouraging us to change the behavior of the customer. And to change the behavior, you really need some kind of a motivation, some kind of a trigger that has to play a very active role in your life. And discount is actually the most efficient form of making that change in the behavior. How many of us were actually doing any of the online commerce transaction till like 2 or 3 years back? I personally used to always think that nobody's going to buy shoes and clothes online, and I'm completely wrong. I turned out to be completely wrong. So there are some triggers that you do need to change consumers to change their behavior, but at some point of time, reality has to catch up, and you actually have to make money, and things have to be profitable, and they have to make sound business sense. And I just want to add one more thing on the mindset point that you were talking about. I think without getting into the offline, online kind of thing, there is a fundamental difference in the way classical organizations were run and the new age organizations are run. In the classical organizations, wisdom was king. Wisdom comes by working in the organization for a very long amount of time, so you learn how things are done. And once you have learned how things are done, that becomes the king, and you basically start dictating this is the way things are done. You don't question the way things have been done in the past. In the new age of organizations, wisdom is not king. It is the speed at which you learn that is the king. The faster you are willing to learn, faster you are able to learn, the better you're going to become. Because the approach works is that the fundamental first statement that you make is, okay, I don't know how this thing works. I don't know how this thing should work. Let me actually figure out. And you figure out by way of doing 10 experiments. One of those experiments will actually click, and you'll have a way of doing things which is far better than the way in which classical organizations used to work. And that's how new business approaches, new innovation actually happens. New innovation actually happens out of accidents. When you're doing 10 experiments, one of them will succeed. And you really need to encourage this experimentation approach, which comes from the fundamental mindset of saying, I don't know, I want to learn. And that speed of learning is what matters. Which is what is basically creating situations where if you put two types of organizations in the same room, the result is actually a net chaos, because half of the people will want to work in one way, half the people will want to work in another way. And you're not going to make any progress at all. The people who are coming with experimentation approach will get frustrated because things will not move. And people who are coming with a wisdom approach will think, hey, these guys are just crazy sort of guys who are just doing some random stuff, and this is not the way things are going to work. You really need to bring in order to this organization.
Yeah, but look, there's one difference. If you look at entrepreneurs in the country today, a lot of existing entrepreneurs have the wisdom and are willing to take this kind of a call. But the risk appetite is not there. Don't you think the whole change has happened because of the way the risk appetite has changed? Today, you can do trials, you can fail. Somebody is willing to fund your failures and willing to fund your trials. I mean, do you have any example here where somebody did this without taking the risk and took the risk but didn't get any fund backing? I mean, how does that really work? The SMEs here, brick and mortar SMEs, where do they get the fund? Is it a mindset, or is it mindset plus fund to take this kind of a risk?
So funding is actually a completely different aspect. Funding can happen for the offline as well as online, but this online is more of a style of doing business which is based on this experimentation. And a lot of these online businesses are getting funding because the belief is that one of these experiments will click and turn out to be really, really big winners. And that winner will actually pay off for everything in terms of all the investment that has been made.
So I think one of the things that take off from this part of the session is also to say that it's important to keep trying, because there's a change in consumer. And unless you try and try with speed, maybe you'll not see the success. So before we get on to Q&A, as we stand today in 2015, is there anything that you can talk about what could happen in 2016 or 17? Well, let's not talk about 2020. In 16, 17, any trend? We have Sanjeev who talked of a lot of changes and trends happening. But anything immediate that you would like to caution, suggest, or tell the audience here that, hey guys, watch this. This can be a big change that can come to the country in terms of retail, whether online, offline, omni-channel. I'll leave it to you all.
So the way I think is that till now in the last 5 or 7 years, the way industry has grown is that it has taken more of the commerce onto internet, and we have started doing e-commerce. Let's sell everything online. And we have reached to a stage where there is only about 2% of the commerce is being done online. And even in countries like US, etc., maybe about 7 to 8% of the commerce is actually done online, depending on the person that you ask. I think the bigger opportunity lies in how you smartly deploy technology into the offline businesses and make them more efficient, make them run with this experimentation approach, make them build consumer experience which are unthought, unimagined, and completely delight consumer in a way that none of the e-commerce players can actually do. And I think that is a big opportunity out there, and I call that opportunity as commerce E instead of e-commerce, because instead of taking commerce to internet, let's actually bring internet to commerce and then make commerce much, much, much more efficient and build magical experience for consumers.
Vishal also mentioned that, digitization of that. Krish?
From the point of view of, say, medium-sized company at this point of time in India, but with ambitions to become a large company, one of the key things, the change that needs to happen is about ease of doing business within the company and the speed of doing business within the company. Because if large organizations don't become nimble, I think they won't retain their customers, and then they will lose their profitability eventually. So that is the big change that I would say we need to bring about as far as the bricks and mortar large players are concerned.
Vishal?
I think perhaps if offline retailers, I suspect that will change, which is rather than just thinking of online as a sales channel, they will think of online as a business model. And business model that solves a particular problem. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that offline will go away. In fact, majority of the online retailers want to build out offline presence, more and more closer to the consumer.
Hey, just 1 minute, hold on. Look, is there a possibility that some online player can pay $10 billion or $20 billion to Rakesh or shoppers and buy them off?
Very good idea, actually. Maybe we should try it out.
No, yaar, it will be really nice. See, Rakesh is smiling. How many people are smiling? Just imagine.
You put the right valuation. I'm sure when Kishore is here tomorrow, you can strike the deal.
No, problem with Kishore is if I say 10, 20, he'll say 50 se kam main baat nahi karunga, yaar. So that's the problem, no?
No, the real question is, will he sell?
Huh?
Will he sell? Because he will think it's a $100 billion opportunity.
I can tell you that 10 years back in the same IRF forum, there was this discussion on this, and Kishore said, I mean, business is business, at the right value, everything is sellable. Yeah? So I think you please create a buyer. I will get you 1 or 2 sellers. Okay, so that's possible. Sorry. Yeah, Radhika.
Over the next year, so I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to take a page out of your book over here. Yeah. How many of you use Facebook? Have you stopped socializing offline? No, right? You're still meeting friends, going out, all of that, right?
I want to interfere here. I went to a restaurant day 4 yesterday in BKC. It was absolutely packed. People were sitting and people were standing and eating, but everybody was. What kind of a socializing is this? Yeah? I don't agree with this kind of a socializing, Okay. Let me tell you, a friend of mine as old as me.
Completely stolen my thunder, but I agree
Let me
with
give you one more example.
Yeah.
I want to give you one more example. One friend of mine has a 26 years old son who's an absolute geek and he's all involved in animation. He says, उसको knock करता हूँ तो घर में से बाहर खाने के लिए नहीं आता. उसको Facebook से message भेजता हूँ, come for lunch, he comes out. So
it's a new mode of communication.
Sorry.
So I do think that online, offline will continue to coexist. The new mantra is going to be O2O, online to offline, or offline to online, however you want to portray it. For me, it is online to offline. For Rakesh, it could be offline to online. There has to be coexistence that will come out. And it's going to come out in the way Vishal talked about. We have a lot of the smaller retailers that sell on our platform. Till now, we have been working on taking their business national. Now, we're working on taking their business hyper-local. We're giving them technology that enables their business in the 5-mile radius where they operate out of. It's the same technology that took them national.
Yeah,
it's just the deployment of technology will be different.
Also, I believe, and Rakesh, maybe you would like to end the session before we take on Q&A with that. Also, I think there's a huge opportunity of collaboration, okay, between the online world and the offline world, because there are some strengths sitting on both the places. Maybe you can combine that together. You know, I'm not saying a total buyout, but there could be possibilities of working together. And I'm seeing some of those models emerging.
I think, see, you know, this divide has got created in this country in a much bigger way than anywhere else. And it's more to do with the regulation piece rather than anything else. At the end of the day, each one of us is trying to cater to a consumer for his end needs. That's precisely what everyone is trying to do. Through an hyper-local model, pure online model, or an offline model. But that divide has got created tremendously, you know, and half of us are having a problem, you know, think about it, the fact that, you know, with the kind of restriction that exists in doing pure play online activity, you have to restructure your business model, and that's like, you know, it's just too expensive to restructure just for the sake of become compliant kind of thing. But if you, the way I look at things happening in the next couple of years, I think I agree with what Alok is trying to say, is, you know, it's about offline retailers becoming more agile, becoming more experimental, and of course being digitally ready, you know, because I believe consumers will keep coming back to retail stores. That's what do. Alok goes to the retail store, buys it online from the price. He's there at the store, he's seen the product, but he doesn't make a buy there because he's going to look at the price, it's got to be cheaper. That will also disappear very soon. So when that happens, ultimately people will always come back to retail stores, they will make the purchase there. Right? Provided we carry the assortment, provided we have the ability to deliver on time, and all of that requires the technology.
You can't get away from the real way of doing business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So don't get swayed away by what's happening in the newspaper or online. At least do the right business in the right way today, and then adopt with the digital. We have 10 more minutes to go. We'll take a few Q&A questions. Request only questions, no comments. Okay, come quickly to the question. The gentleman, the person who raised the hand, single, which was that? Only online guy?
Yeah, online.
Yeah. Is there a mic? Yeah.
Well, I think, Nagesh, first of all, I am seeing you for the last 12 years and you are becoming younger and younger. So
thank you very much. Where is Rajiv Makhni? Please tell him. He says.
Yeah. Again, I think I was very impressed with one of the questions that you asked is what will happen to the society.
What is your question?
And my question is that I think the retailer, the way they are thinking is that they're kind of still dividing between the online community and offline community. And I think the strategy should be not to think...
Are you a consultant?
I am a consultant. But
yeah. What's your question?
But my question is that, is there any real strategy where you are thinking that these two should be simultaneously grow, and there should not be any divide between the online community and offline community? Because I'm sure that today I'm the only person who is only using mobile, but next year, I mean, when we'll be having the IRF.
So, have you all seen, thank you. Have you all seen any real strategy where somebody in the offline has actually gone online and has got some big contribution from omni-channel strategy? Internationally, there are lots of examples, but anything domestic, Alok, if you want to share on that?
In India, I can't recollect anything that is very compelling. Things are very mediocre as of now.
Any questions here, please? We'll come to this block. Yeah. Questions only.
Thank you,
please.
Nagesh.
Yeah.
I'm Yash, the CEO of Torero Corp. My question is to Alok. Alok, I'm sort of referring to your point where you said that earlier a lot of money chased a few authentic opportunities and hence the valuations were up. I represent the brand Cross. Are we seeing a situation where there are many channels chasing a few authentic brands, and could we see a scenario where the valuations of brands could rise?
Good point.
That's a beautiful point. I don't really know, but what I can sort of think is that online is also a very beautiful way of creating new brands. And I don't think that has largely happened in India yet, but there are a lot of efforts which are going on in the furniture industry, in the apparel industry, in the food industry particularly in the last 8 to 10 months. I think online allows you to create many more brands in a relatively easy manner with much less amount of money than what you can do in the offline world, which may end up resulting in a situation where brands are not at a premium because there are too many of them out there possibly. So I don't personally see that happening, but it may happen. I can always be wrong.
It's a very, very good point. Can you create a great brand out of online? Any questions from this side of the audience? Yes, please.
Any examples of online being successful in B2B marketplaces? Because every time we come here, it's all discussion about B2C. There's no discussion or any success stories about B2B marketplaces or selling maybe services online. What is the share of these kind of players?
You can't ask these questions in public forum. Huh? As per the government of India, everything in this country is only B2B. They are not retail. Huh? So please, you should ask this question when Mr. Kant is here in the evening. Anybody wants to take that up?
So we launched our B2B channel about 4 months ago. There are, I think Nagesh pointed out very well, there are a lot of government regulations around that, and we are working on collaborating with some of the larger players. There's a huge opportunity there, and there will be more private marketplaces that will creep up along with that. But are we there as yet? And probably not. Another couple of years, and that should be the hot topic then.
One last question, anybody? Yes, please. Okay.
Would valuations in the O2O sphere be driven by GMV, or would we see a profitability in the horizon?
Alok, you're the right guy. Will valuation be driven by GMV or true profitability?
Valuation will always be driven by what is the opportunity size out there and how soon you can reach to that stage. What is the path, whether it is based on discounting or some other ways of changing the consumer behavior, that is not known. But I think valuation is largely driven by the opportunity size and none of the current metric. Because in an early stage business, there's not much revenue, there's not much of things to base your opinion on. If a startup comes with 6 months of background and comes and tells that I'm making 10 lakh rupees of revenue and I'm having only 2 lakh rupees of cost, so I'm making 8 lakh rupees of profit, is that going to sustain when that startup becomes 100 times? Clearly not known right now. So you can certainly not base those valuation decisions based on whatever small amount of data you have seen for the startup. You really need to base your opinions on what is the future opportunity size that the startup is trying to leverage. And you will make mistakes, which is why 9 out of 10 startups do fail at the end of the day.
Some of you who have been in this forum 8, 9 years, 10 years back, okay, India is always only opportunity. Okay, I have seen this place full of mall developers. You know, we will open 500 malls. We have seen retailers here who said we'll open 1,000 retail shops. So India is all full of opportunities only. Valuations happen on those opportunities, but in the real, all of us who have gone into public spaces, eventually the clear value comes when we deliver what our stakeholders require. But thank you so much, fantastic audience. What a fantastic panel we have. So one big round.